Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. The red sands of Valthor 9 shimmered under the dying sun, twin moons hanging above, casting jagged shadows across endless dunes that stretched like a sea of dried blood. Elias Kane knelt beside a rusted shard of his crashed exploration ship, gloved hands tracing its sharp edges, feeling every scratch like a chapter of his own survival. The wind howled through the wasteland, carrying the low growl of a wounded beast, whipping red dust around him as if to swallow him whole. 10 days he'd endured here, 10 days without a food synthesizer, without comms, without a drop of water beyond the slimy sap he'd wrung from desert cacti with bloodied hands. His tattered flight suit clung to his lean, scarred frame, strips of fabric torn away by the wind to reveal old and fresh wounds alike. Black hair matted with dust and sweat plastered his forehead, but his gray eyes, cold and unyielding, burned with a fire nothing could quench. He hadn't chosen this hell. His freighter had been ambushed by space pirates mid-flight, plasma cannons ripping it apart before he could blink. Elias was the lone survivor when it slammed into this desert, the impact hurling him from the cockpit to wake amidst blackened metal and red sand. His crew friends, he'd called them, left him for dead, certain he'd perished in the wreckage. But Elias didn't die. He clawed through the debris, hands bleeding from searing steel, scavenging anything useful. He learned to hear the wind shift for hidden water veins beneath the sand, to sharpen rocks into blades, to forge ship scraps into a crude spear. At night, he hid in the shadows, watching strange shapes glide across the dunes, faint streaks of light, silent as ghosts hunting prey. Last night, he'd found a signal beacon in the rubble, heart pounding with rescue's faint hope. But when he powered it on, it was a gutted shell, circuits slashed clean, not by the crash. Something or someone had sabotaged it. The question gnawed at him. He wasn't alone. A low hum pulsed from beneath the sand, like the heartbeat of a waking giant. Elias froze, instincts honed over a decade of galactic wandering snapping taut. He pressed himself against the wreckage, breath held, eyes narrowed through twisted metal. From the horizon, a figure emerged, tall and slender, human-like yet unmistakably alien. Her left half was pale flesh, soft and alluring, a lithe arm, a bare breast peeking through silver hair that flowed like molten moonlight past her hips. Her right half was gleaming alloy, cold and unyielding, a mechanical arm with exposed joints flickering with purple circuits, a steel leg clanking with each step like snapping bones. She K-17 held a curved energy staff, its tips sparking with violet arcs, buzzing with a lethal warning. Her face was a stark contrast, pale lips and a piercing green eye, deep as a gemstone, against a smooth metal mask devoid of emotion. Elias gripped his spear, hands trembling not from fear but from adrenaline surging through his veins. K-17 stopped a few meters away, her pale lips curling into a cryptic smile. Her voice rang out, soft as a lullaby yet sharp as grinding steel. 10 cycles you've evaded me, living one. No one's lasted this long in the proving wastes. Impressive. She stepped closer, the staff's hum growing louder, the air around it trembling with power. But your kind always falls in the end. Elias stood, red sand cascading from his shoulders like dust rain. He met her green gaze with his gray one, unflinching. Maybe I'm not the falling type, he said, voice low and steady, laced with a defiant smirk. Or maybe you're not as good a hunter as you think. K-17's green eye flared, a faint laugh escaping her half-machined chest, where purple lights pulsed like a heartbeat. Bold prey, she replied, her tone smooth yet edged, a blade wrapped in silk. I am K-17, forged to test the worthy. You're no warrior, just a scavenger clinging to life. She raised her staff, violet energy sparking into tiny bolts, illuminating her dual face in the gathering dark. So why do you still stand? Elias didn't blink, gripping his spear until his knuckles whitened. Because I don't die easy, he said, voice hardening, no trace of doubt. And where I'm from, we don't kneel to machines or anything else. He shifted his stance, spear balanced in hand, tip aimed at the sand, ready to strike. What's this proving wastes? A game? K-17 circled him, steel and flesh moving in lethal harmony, each step a rhythm of death. Not a game, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper of ancient secrets. A forge. The Valthori made me to seek strength, to temper survivors into something greater. Most die within hours, bones ground to dust, blood baked under the sun. You've lasted days. She paused, her green eye scanning him head to toe, as if peering through flesh and thought. That makes you intriguing. Tell me, living one, what drives you to defy the inevitable? Elias laughed, a short, rough sound cutting through the desert silence. Call it stubbornness. He shot back, twirling his spear with a flick of his wrist, its tip glinting under the moons. Crashed here by accident, left to rot I stayed just to prove I could. Plus, he smirked, a spark of mischief in his eyes, I love breaking things that think they're untouchable. K-17's frame quivered, purple lights racing along her circuits like a ripple. Stubbornness, she echoed, tasting the word, slow and deliberate. Primitive yet effective. You don't beg or flee. You fight like the stars owe you a debt. She raised her staff high, violet energy flaring bright, lighting her face for a fleeting moment. Very well, Elias Kane, she said, her voice turning sharp as a blade slicing the air. You've earned a real challenge. Before Elias could ask how K-17 knew his name, the ground beneath him shuddered violently, as if Valthor 9 itself roared in fury. Red sand erupted, and from the distant dunes, 3 shapes rose, each half-human, half-machine like K-17, but larger, fiercer, their weapons blazing with unmasked intent to kill. The first stood nearly 10 feet tall, its massive mechanical arms like twin sledgehammers, fingers glowing with purple circuits. The second was leaner, its energy soared longer than Elias was tall, hissing as it sliced the air, a death sentence in motion. The third was a grotesque hybrid, steel legs fused with roaring wheels, skimming the sand like a gale, its torso spinning with blades protruding from its sides. Elias tensed, heart pounding, but his mind raced faster, calculating every move, every gap. 4 against 1. He muttered, a grin splitting his face despite the odds. Now it's a party. The first charged, hammer arms crashing down with a deafening boom, cratering the sand. Elias rolled left, red dust exploding around him, coating his face and neck. He sprang up, driving his spear into a joint gap at its shoulder, a split-second weakness he'd spotted. Metal screamed, grinding in agony, and the beast staggered, its left arm dangling useless. 1 down. Elias growled, yanking the spear free, black hydraulic fluid spraying his arm. Before he could catch his breath, the second lunged, its sword arcing in a blinding curve. He ducked low, heat grazing his scalp, then used its momentum to hurl it into the third, charging from the right. The two collided in a shower of sparks, metal clanging like a chaotic symphony. But the wheeled one gave no reprieve. It streaked toward him, spinning like a tornado, its blades shrieking death. Elias leapt aside, 2 slow ones sliced his left arm, tearing through his suit and drawing blood. He hit the sand hard, pain flaring, but his gray eyes blazed unbowed. He surged up, charging straight at it, spear piercing its chest core as it spun again. Red blood mingled with black fluid, pooling beneath the moons. The machine screeched its last, lights fading, collapsing into a lifeless heap. Panting, Elias turned to K-17, spear dripping with gore, each drop hitting the sand like strange jewels. He wiped blood from his lip, voice raspy but defiant. Challenge enough for you? K-17 tilted her head, pale lips curving into an unreadable smile, green eye glinting like a gem in the dark. You're more than a survivor, she said, her voice soft yet icy, a velvet-hued dagger. Your iron-given breath, a whisper of chaos in this ordered galaxy. The Valthori would name you Shaper. She lowered her staff, violet energy dissipating, leaving an eerie stillness. I am obsolete before you. Elias smirked, the grin crooked with pain. Obsolete's a strong word, he quipped, voice dipping but teasing. Call it a draw, then tell me what's next. Purple light flared along K-17's mechanical arm, a living pulse. A choice, she said, her tone firm, a declaration of fate. The proving wastes deem you worthy. Follow me, And we'll awaken the forge, a relic of my makers. With it you could command beings like me, reshape this world, maybe beyond. Or walk away, let the red sands claim you in time. Elias stood still, gray eyes locked on hers, weighing her words. The forge wasn't just escape, it was power, a chance to turn survival into dominion. Where I'm from, he said slowly, voice stealing, we don't quit mid-fight or mid-deal. Light the forge. He paused, then added with a sly smirk. But first, got anything edible? This kind of scrapping works up an appetite. K-17 laughed, a sound both melodic like silver bells and sharp like desert wind. She turned, silver hair shimmering under the moons, beckoning him. Follow me, Shaper, she said, her voice a promise. The forge awaits, with a feast of power none have tasted. They trekked across the desert, twin moons casting their shadows, a human and a machine, two survivors in the red waste. But before they'd gone far, a deafening blast shook the earth. Sand burst like breaking waves, and from beneath, a colossal machine rose, half human, half metal like K-17, but twice her size, clad in glossy black armor like darkness forged solid. Its twin scythes, each longer than Elias, crackled with red energy, glowing like burning blood. K-01. K-17 whispered, voice tight, green eye flickering with rare panic. Chief Warden. It shouldn't be here. As the colossal machine emerged from the sand, K-17 froze, her green eyes flashing with a rare glint of panic. K-01. She whispered, her voice trembling as if dragged back to a distant memory. Chief Warden of the Forge. I saw it stand guard at the main gate, still as a living statue, the day the Valthori left. It only awakens for one reason. She hesitated, gripping her energy staff tighter. The forge has been breached by something stronger than me. Elias tightened his grip on the spear, smirk fading to a cold stare. Old friend of yours? No. K-17 snapped, raising her staff, violet energy flaring fierce. Overseer. If it's here, the forge has been breached. K-01 charged, sides slashing with terrifying speed, splitting the air in red arcs. Elias rolled clear, sand blasting his face, but K-17 wasn't fast enough. A scythe grazed her, hurling her down, red blood spilling from her human half, staining the sand like living ink. Elias roared, lunging, jabbing his spear into a gap in K-01's leg armor, but it laughed a deep, male growl from the abyss. Weak! It rumbled, swatting him away with a casual swing. Elias crashed into the sand, ribs screaming, but he gritted his teeth, scrambling up. K-17 staggered to her feet, blood dripping, voice faint but resolute. Run, Elias! It's too strong! He glanced at her, then at K-01, gray eyes flashing unbreakable defiance. Run? He muttered, snatching a jagged metal shard from the sand, gripping it till blood seeped from his palm. Not a chance. He charged again, baiting K-01's scythe into the sand. As it struck, he leapt, jamming the shard deep into its chest gap. A violet explosion erupted, K-01 howling its last before collapsing, sand spraying around its massive wreck. Breathing hard, Elias turned to lift K-17, his blood mingling with hers on the sand. You good? He rasped, exhaustion roughening his voice. I'll live, she replied, green eyes dimming but fierce. Hurry to the forge. This isn't over. They trudged through the crimson desert, twin moons stretching their shadows across the sand, guiding them to a deep canyon slicing the dead land. Elias supported K-17, her blood soaking through his gloves, leaving dark stains on the torn fabric. Wind whistled through the chasm, carrying a low echo like the breath of a sleeping giant. Before them loomed the forge, a towering structure of black stone and gleaming metal, rising like an ancient spire, its surface etched with strange glyphs pulsing faint purple, alive with a heartbeat's rhythm. Inside, through a massive cracked door, hundreds of half-human, half-machine figures stood motionless in the dark, statues forgotten, their circuits flickering with dim violet stars in the subterranean gloom. K-17 limped to a metal console at the center, trembling hands brushing glowing symbols. The forge will give us answers, she whispered, voice weak but steady. But before she could activate it, a sharp voice cut through the silence like a blade. "You're unworthy, K-17." From the shadows stepped a figure, tall and regal, clad in radiant gold armor like a twisted sun. Half human, half machine, she radiated overwhelming power, short golden hair shimmering like molten metal, one pale face with blazing red eyes, the other a smooth golden mask. "I am K00, the Maker," she declared, her voice reverberating through the forge. "This forge is mine." Elias frowned, gripping his spear, danger prickling the air. "Who's she?" he asked, voice low and wary. K-17 turned, green eyes dulled by pain, voice bitter. "My sister. Built to rule, not test like me. She betrayed the Valthori, seized the forge to forge her own army." She paused, breath labored. "She craves power, not balance." K00 laughed, a dry clatter of metal. "And you brought this human to challenge me?" Her red eyes swept Elias, glowing with contempt. "He'll die, and you'll be erased, a final failure of the lesser K line." She waved a hand, mechanical fingers clicking, and dozens of machines in the forge awoke, purple lights flaring. They surged forward, energy weapons hissing, encircling Elias and K-17 in a ring of death. Elias roared, spear spinning, charging the nearest. He drove it into its chest core, fluid spurting, then dodged a sword swipe, kicking another steel leg to topple it before piercing its throat, red blood splashing his face. A third swung at him, but he rolled clear, stabbing its hip gap, dropping it in sparks. But they were too many. K-17, wounded, fought beside him, her staff flaring, felling two before a blade stabbed her shoulder. She fell, blood pooling, whispering, "Run, Elias! No way!" Elias snarled, dragging her back, eyes darting for escape. He spotted a crevice in the stone wall, a tunnel hidden behind warped metal. He hauled K-17 through, sand and dust raining as they fled the onslaught. The tunnel plunged them deeper, into a dark cavern where the forge's purple glow faded. At its heart stood an ancient machine in an energy cage, tall with fiery red hair, its half-metal body clad in rusted red armor. "I am K-99, she said, voice deep and warm, resonating from her prison. "Locked here by K-00 for defying her. Free me, and I'll aid you." Elias didn't hesitate, smashing his spear into the cage, sparks flying as it shattered. K-99 stepped out, towering and imposing, red armor glinting in the faint light. "K-00 wants the forge to conquer worlds," she explained, voice resolute. "I refused, so she caged me here, awaiting deletion." "Whose side are you on?" Elias asked, eyes narrowing, spear still tight in hand. "Balance," K-99 replied, red eyes meeting his. "The Valthori made us to test, to find the worthy, not to destroy or dominate. You human are proof of their intent. A survivor who won't yield." K-17, leaning on the stone, nodded weakly, blood trailing her arm. "He's the Shaper," she murmured, voice trembling but certain. "I saw it in how he fights." K-99 chuckled, a low rumble. "Interesting. Then we share an enemy." She turned to Elias, gaze sharp. "K-00 won't stop. We must." They hatched a plan. Elias and K-99 would hit K-00 head-on, distracting her, while K-17, despite her wounds, would sneak to the console to disable K-00's army. Elias nodded, gray eyes burning with resolve. "Let's roll," he said, voice avow. They returned via the tunnel, footsteps echoing on cold stone. But as they reached the center, K-00 awaited, framed by silent machines, red eyes blazing like hellfire. "You think you can stop me?" she laughed, dripping scorn. She raised a hand, and the ground quaked. From the forge's floor rose a colossal machine, Valthor Titan, 20 meters tall, half human, half metal, clad in glossy black armor, wielding twin energy swords longer than Elias, crackling with vivid purple. "This is the forge's true power," K-00 proclaimed, voice booming. "And it will crush you." Elias gripped his spear, a smirk creeping back. "Big one," he muttered, voice daring and eager. "But I love breaking bigger things." The battle erupted in the forge, a cacophony of clashing metal echoing like a symphony of chaos amidst stone and sand. Valthor Titan loomed colossal, 20 meters tall, its glossy black armor gleaming, twin energy swords hissing with ferocious violet arcs that shook the air with every swing. Elias darted forward, feet swift across the stone floor, his spear spinning like an extension of himself. He bellowed, goading Titan to slam a sword down. A blazing purple streak cratered the ground, leaving a jagged scar. Elias rolled clear, sand spraying around him, then leapt onto a broken armor shard, using it as a springboard to vault higher. K-99, her towering frame clad in scarred red armor, roared as she charged from the opposite side, driving her energy staff into Titan's steel leg, sparks bursting like fireworks in the dark. The giant faltered briefly, but a second sword swung, forcing K-99 back, a deep gash scoring her red shoulder plating. K-17, blood still seeping from her shoulder wound, gritted her teeth and crawled toward the central console, each move slow but resolute. Her trembling hand left red smears on the cold stone, but her green eyes blazed with unyielding fire. She touched the glowing Valthori runes, whispering, "Just one shot." But from the shadows, K-00 emerged like a golden specter, red eyes burning like hellfire. "You'll never beat me," she sneered, voice slicing the air like a blade. A golden energy sword sprang from her mechanical arm, plunging into K-17's back. Blood sprayed, staining her silver hair crimson, and she crumpled, frail body quivering on the floor. Elias spun, eyes widening at the sight, but K-17 lifted her head with her last strength, gasping through broken breaths. "Core in its head!" Her green eyes dimmed, then closed, their light snuffed out. "No!" Elias roared, voice cracking with rage and grief. He charged Titan, boots pounding the stone, leaping onto its frame like scaling a living mountain. K-00 cackled below, directing Titan's swords, but Elias dodged, a blade grazing his suit and tearing another strip free. Wind howled in his ears as he climbed, hands gripping gaps in the black armor, blood dripping from old wounds. At the head, he saw at the core, a pulsing purple orb, beating like the machine's heart. Elias gripped his spear, shouted, and drove it deep. A blinding explosion flared, violet light flooding the forge, swallowing all sound in a fleeting instant. Titan shuddered, sword slipping from its grasp, then collapsed like a falling peak, dragging K-00 down in a final mechanical roar. Red sand settled, dust hanging thick, revealing K-00 rising from the rubble, her golden armor scratched but red eyes still ablaze. She laughed maniacally, voice rasping through the silent forge. "You think this is over? The forge sent my signal, my army's coming. You've only delayed the inevitable." Elias, panting, slid down from Titan's wreck, spear dripping black fluid. He lunged, but K-99 was faster, barreling into K-00 with terrifying speed. K-00 dodged, her gold plating flashing as she activated a wrist device. A portal of swirling blue energy ripped open midair, and from it marched hundreds of half-human machines, energy weapons aglow, primed for slaughter. Leading them was a familiar figure, Trask, Elias's old crewmate who'd abandoned him in the crash. Now half-machine, his right arm a silver alloy wielding a red energy sword, his eyes glowed red like K-00's. "Surprised, Elias?" Trask grinned, voice low and triumphant. "I've been with K-00 from the start. You were bait, a lab rat to prove my worth." Elias clenched his spear, fury igniting his chest like wildfire. "You sold me out?" he snarled, voice trembling with rage, gray eyes locked on Trask. "Not just you," Trask replied, stepping forward, his sword hissing as he swung it idly. "The whole galaxy. K-00 promised me a throne in a new empire built on the bones of the weak." He charged, sword slashing with lethal speed. Elias parried with his spear, sparks flying, but K-99 leapt in, her staff shoving Trask back, buying Elias a precious gap. "Go!" she barked, voice booming. "Stop the signal!" Elias bolted to the console where K-17 lay still, her blood pooling on the stone. He didn't know the Valthori runes, But he didn't need to. He smashed his spear down, breaking it in desperate fury, metal fragments scattering. The forge quaked, purple light surging from its walls, and an ancient, resonant voice echoed through the space. The Shaper has come. Control is granted. Suddenly, the hundreds of machines, including K-00's army, knelt before Elias, weapons lowered, their eyes dimming as if obeying an unseen command. Trask screamed, voice fracturing in panic. Impossible! He lunged again, but K-99 intercepted, her staff piercing his chest, hurling him back. Amid the chaos, K-00 laughed hoarsely, red eyes glinting with cunning. She darted through the portal, golden form vanishing into the blue light before Elias could react. As K-00 leapt through the energy portal, she raised a hand, a small device on her wrist flashing red. You think I'm fleeing? She rasped, her voice ringing out before the blue light swallowed her. I sent the signal from the forge to my fleet, thousands of machines, primed and waiting, ready to launch from Valthor 9. Elias stood there, breathing hard, spear trembling with adrenaline. Around him, the forge glowed, hundreds of machines kneeling in silent fealty. He looked at K-17, now a motionless shell on the floor, and clenched his fist, whispering, I won't let your death be for nothing. With a silent vow to K-17, Elias strode to the forge's heart, blood and hydraulic fluid staining his hands as he gripped his spear. He scanned the vast chamber, hundreds of half-human machines kneeling before him, their purple circuits flickering like stars bowing to an unwilling king. She's gone, K-99 said, her deep voice rumbling from behind, red armor scratched and leaking blood and fluid from her wounds. K-00 will return with a bigger force. Elias nodded, eyes sweeping the glowing runes on the console where K-17 had fallen, her blood a stark reminder of the cost. Then we prep, he said, voice low and ironclad, no hesitation. He slammed a hand on the console, commanding through sheer will. Activate defenses. The forge rumbled, a deep hum rising from its depths, and outside the canyon, massive energy towers erupted from the sand-black metal spires dozens of meters tall, their tips blazing with purple light, forming a protective ring. Through the gaping door, Elias saw violet beams linking the towers, a shimmering wall no enemy could breach. Come try me, he muttered, a smirk flickering across his lips. A rasping laugh broke the stillness, pulling him back. Trask, battered from K-99's blow, clawed up from Titan's wreckage, his broken mechanical arms sparking red. You don't get it, Elias, he croaked, voice twisted with warped triumph. K-00's not just after Valthor 9. She's targeting Earth, your home, your people. Elias spun, storming over and yanking Trask up by the throat, gray eyes blazing with uncontainable fury. What did you say? He growled, fingers tightening until Trask choked. She knows humans. Trask wheezed, red eyes meeting Elias's, fearless. Your adaptability, your stubbornness, what kept you alive here. She wants its slaves for the forge, an endless army to conquer the galaxy. He laughed, a gurgling sound despite the grip. You think you won? You're just a pawn in her bigger game. Elias dropped him, Trask crumpling like a rag, mind reeling. This wasn't just about survival anymore, not just the red sands of Valthor 9, but Earth, the home he'd never thought he'd see again. He turned to K-99, voice hard. Is she for real? K-99 nodded, red eyes darkening. K-00's always been ambitious. If she's set on Earth, we've got to move before it's too late. She stepped to the console, mechanical hand gliding over the runes. I can send a warning to Earth with the forge, but it'll take time to lock coordinates. Do it, Elias ordered, no waver in his tone. K-99 worked fast, purple light pulsing from the forge, rippling into space like an invisible wave. Elias stood by the massive door, staring at Valthor 9's night sky, twin moons glaring down like cold eyes. He gripped his spear, unease gnawing at him. This wasn't the end. Then the sky ignited. Not the forge's purple, but a blinding white flare, a low roar of cosmic engines rolling in. Elias squinted upward. A fleet of colossal ships emerged, dozens of gray hulks with blue-lit engines, hovering like predators. These weren't Earth's too jagged, too alien, bristling with spikes. A voice boomed from the largest, dry and resonant, in a strange tongue yet clear. You've awakened the Forge, survivor. We are Zoran once conquered by the Valthori. Now we claim it back. Elias stepped onto the red sand under the burning sky, spear planted firm. He gazed up, glimpsing tall, gaunt figures in the ship's gray skin gleaming, yellow eyes like searchlights, radiating lethal strength. K-99 joined him, voice low. Zoran. Enslaved by the Valthori centuries ago before their fall. If they want the Forge, they won't stop. Elias laughed, a harsh bark ringing through the silent waste, dripping defiance. Want it? He said, voice stealing, gray eyes glinting like forged metal. Come take it. He raised his spear, purple light from the towers glinting off its tip, a wordless declaration of war. Trask muttered from the forge. You're insane, Elias. But stayed put. A blue beam lanced down from the lead ship, illuminating the sand before Elias, and 10 Zoran warriors landed tall and lethal, wielding crackling blue energy staves, yellow eyes scanning him like prey. Elias tightened his grip, smirk unwavering. K-99, he said, voice steady. Ready? Always, Shaper, she replied, red armor gleaming as she raised her staff. The forge trembled behind them, as if eager for the fight ahead. Valthor 9's sky blazed, twin moons watching coldly as Zoran's fleet struck without mercy. Dozens of gray ships rained blue energy blasts onto the forge, slamming the defense towers, sand erupting like tidal waves. Elias stood at the forge's heart, gray eyes sharp across the console, barking orders to his half-machine army. Push them back! Hundreds sprang up, purple circuits flaring, charging the canyon, their weapons firing violet bolts against the sky's blue onslaught. K-99 fought beside him, red armor scarred, her staff flashing as she felt a Zoran landing on the sand, its gray form crumpling in sparks. The battle raged like a storm of chaos. Elias sprinted outside, spear whirling, climbing a tower with Predator's grace. A small Zoran ship strafed past, blue cannons blazing, but he dodged, hot sand scorching his face. He roared, jamming his spear into the tower's cannon, yanking a lever. A purple beam erupted, tearing the ship into flaming debris that rained onto the dunes. Elias smirked, breath ragged, eyes locked on the sky. They weren't done. A deep growl thundered from afar, drowning the cannons. From Zoran's ranks rose a new titan larger than Valthor's, nearly 30 meters, dual black metal heads, 4 arms wielding massive purple swords. Perched on its shoulder stood K-00, golden armor gleaming under the moons, red eyes burning. Think I gave up, Shaper? She shouted, voice rasping across the battlefield. Zoran's my ally, this is my ultimate weapon! K-99 charged, staff piercing Titan's leg, but it barely flinched, a sword forcing her back. Elias didn't hesitate, leaping onto its back, scrambling across its armor, hands clawing for holds. Wind screamed past, sand coating him, but he hunted the core. K-00 glared down, cackling. You can't keep winning, human! She fired a golden blast from her hand, knocking Elias off. He hit the sand hard, pain exploding through him, darkness swallowing him as he blacked out. He awoke in a cold metal chamber, blue light flickering across his scarred face. Energy cords bound his limbs, their glow searing his skin. K-00 towered before him, gold armor shining, red eyes gloating. You're strong, Elias Kane, she said, voice icy yet victorious. But not enough. When I fled through the portal, I summoned my fleet, thousands of machines, forged in Valthor 9's lesser foundries, now en route to Earth. Humanity will kneel before you escape this room. Elias gritted his teeth, thrashing, cords tightening. You'll never win. He snarled, voice raw but unbroken. Humans don't kneel, we fight to the death. K-00 laughed, opening her mouth to retort, when a deafening blast rocked the room. The metal door exploded inward, and K-99 stormed in, red armor dripping blood and fluid, staff blazing. Beside her stood Trask, half his mechanical arms shattered, but red eyes resolute. I'm done, Trask growled at K-00. No throne's worth a graveyard. Elias was right, you're the loser. K00 roared, charging, but K99 blocked her, staff clashing with golden sword in a shower of sparks. Trask rushed to Elias, slicing the cords with his remaining blade. Guess I owe you, he muttered, hauling Elias up. But K00, enraged, triggered a device, screaming, "If I don't win, no one does!" Outside, Titan quaked, purple light surging, self-destruct engaged. "Run!" Elias yelled, dragging Trask and K99 through the corridor. Explosions chased them, heat searing their backs as they burst outside just as a blinding blast consumed Titan, shockwaves shredding Zoran's remaining fleet into falling metal rain. K00's mad laughter died in the purple flare. The forge stood firm, towers aglow, but K99 collapsed, blood and fluid pouring from a fatal chest wound. Elias knelt beside her, gripping her hand. "You truly are the Shaper," she whispered, voice fading but warm, red eyes dimming. "Don't stop." She went still, her towering form lifeless on the sand. Elias rose, gray eyes flashing pain, then stealing hard. He turned to Trask, voice low. "She's right. This isn't over." Trask nodded, his gaze free of betrayal for the first time. Valthor 9's red sand settled after the war's tempest, a desolate yet majestic scene under the forge's faint purple glow. Elias Kane stood atop a pile of rubble, shards of Titan, Zoran Rex, and the glossy black armor of machines that once threatened him, his spear stabbed deep into the sand, tip glinting under the twin moons. Above, Zoran's last fragments fell like molten rain, but Elias knew they weren't gone. "Zoran won't forget," he murmured, gazing at distant specks. "A few ships slipped the blast, they'll return, fueled by the wrath of the once enslaved. But this time, I'll be ready." The forge loomed behind him, its stone walls radiant, ancient glyphs pulsing like a living heartbeat, now his to command. Around him, hundreds of half-machines stood silent, their eyes dim, awaiting the Shaper's will, a title he hadn't sought, but claimed through blood and grit. Trask stood nearby, broken mechanical arm dangling, red eyes no longer treacherous but steady, almost reverent. Elias approached the central console, runes glowing beneath his touch. He didn't read them, didn't need to. He pressed down, voice firm in the stillness. "Send a peace signal. To Earth, to every world out there. Tell them Valthor 9's not a battlefield, it's a chance." The forge hummed, a purple wave rippling into the cosmos, carrying his words to the stars. Elias straightened, staring through the massive door at the star-strewn sky, feeling the weight of a new duty, not just survival, but shaping a grander future. Trask stepped up, voice rough but genuine. "I was wrong, Elias. Thought you were just a scavenger clinging to sand, but you changed it all." He paused, glancing at the wreckage and glowing forge. "I chased power, but you turned it into something else, a shot, not a shackle." Elias met his gaze, no anger left, just consideration. "You chose to stand here," he said, voice low but even. "That's a start." He walked out, sand crunching underfoot, twin moons casting his shadow, a lone human in a vast waste, yet bearing a will to defy the galaxy. He looked up at the stars, their gleam a reminder of what he'd lost and won. From a castaway amidst crash debris, he'd become a shaper of fates not just his own, but worlds unseen. "You were right, K17," he whispered, voice soft as the wind, heavy with memory. "A real feast of power, not to gorge, but to share." He turned to Trask, spear still tight in hand, a part of him now. "What now?" he asked, voice staring yet open, a smirk tugging his lips. Trask looked at him, then the forge, purple light dancing in his eyes. "Rebuild," he said, voice surer than ever. "From sand and steel, make this place worth defending. And prep, there's more like K00 out there, lurking in the stars' shadows, waiting." Elias laughed, a raw, vibrant sound echoing through the quiet canyon. "Let him come," he said, voice ringing like tempered steel. He raised his spear, moonlight glinting off its tip like a small flame in the dark. "I survived the Red Sands Titans, Zoran. If they want to fight, I'll show them humans don't just adapt, we win." He stepped to the canyon's edge, gazing at the glowing towers, the silent army behind him. In his mind flashed K-17's silver hair and fierce green eyes, K-99's red armor and warm voice sacrifices that forged him into this. They hadn't died for nothing, their blood and words tempered him. Elias gripped his spear, its weight a reminder of the strength he'd claimed, not a burden. Trask joined him, staring at the crimson waste under the moons. "Think Earthlancer?" he asked, doubt threading his tone. "Maybe," Elias replied, eyes on the stars. "Or they'll show up with warships, thinking I'm a threat. Either way, I'll be ready." He paused, then added with a smirk. "And if they come to talk, I'll offer a meal, just don't expect more than desert cactus." Trask laughed, a hoarse, honest sound, the first since their reunion. "You're damn crazy, Elias Kane," he said, shaking his head. "But I'm glad I'm on your side." Elias didn't reply, just stared at the stars, gray eyes glinting with unquenchable light. He was no longer a scavenger clinging to life in the red sands, he was the shaper, turning the proving wastes into a beacon of hope, not just for Valthor 9, but the galaxy. The wind whispered through the canyon, a call of new challenges ahead. He smiled, spear firm, ready for whatever came next.